Hi again, everybody, and welcome into UnAnchored Boston with Bob Lobel. I'm Mike Lynch. Happy July. Happy 4th of July. And boy, I'll tell you, there's a lot of things going on, and we got the right guy at the right place at the right time. Steve Pagliuca is with us today, and we got a championship, we had a parade, we had free agency, you name it. And since Bob is the senior man on this tag team here, he always gets to formally introduce our guests. So, Robert, take it away.
Well, Steve, we're really happy to have you here, and we want to congratulate you certainly on your great success, uh, certainly this past year, but for the almost 2 decades that you were involved with this basketball team. But you started at Bain Capital. I might also mention there's a guy you went to high school with by the name of Craig Ostrander, who you remember, I don't know if you remember, he and I married into the same family, and we both were divorced in the same family. But
Wow,
he remembered.
That's a blast from the past.
It is. I mean, it is a small world sometimes, and things come up. I was playing golf with his daughter's husband yesterday, and he brought it up. I said, "Yeah, it's crazy. I'll ask Steve about it," and it was very interesting. But you went to Duke, and then of course, Mike, I have to mention, he went to Harvard Business School.
Yep.
I mean, give me a break, both of you guys. Give me a break. Okay.
His father actually was my dentist, so I still have a filling from his father.
Who, Craig?
Craig.
Really?
Yes.
Does it still work?
Yeah, it's still there. His father was a good dentist. He was the town dentist.
Well, that explains a lot of things. All right, I'll be sure to pass it along. That's fantastic. But you were at Duke. Is that where you first became interested in basketball, or was it your Boston upbringing?
Well, I started playing very young basketball and played in what was equivalent of CYO and AAU back in those days, and I played for the high school team. I played football and basketball, and I actually was going to play football at Duke, and went down a month early to get ready. And as I was training, part of the training was playing with the Duke basketball team, and I was covering the best player on the team. And one of the coaches saw that, and they said, "Well, we need you. Why don't you try out for the basketball team instead of football?" And when I went to the football locker room, had I known I could be 250, I would have played football. But back then I was about 190, and these guys looked gigantic to me, so I thought I'd get crushed like a grape. So I ended up playing basketball for a couple of years on the freshman team, JV team there at Duke, and I've always loved the game and been a big fan, ever since I was a kid. And, we lived in Framingham from like I was 0 to 7 years old, and I still remember, the Celtics and all the greats, and Bill Russell and M. Bryant and Havlicek and Laskatov and all those guys. So I go back that far back with loving the Celtics.
Well, I think that's one of the things that people love about your stewardship of the Celtics is that they know, and there's no mistake about it, that you always cared as much about winning in the tradition as they did. And that's all you have to ask if you're a fan in Boston. Does the ownership feel the way I do? Is the ownership passionate as I am? And I think that always has been yes, 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 all the way through.
Yeah, Wick set the tone for that, and myself with Wick, we were both great fans. Both from the area, both lifelong Celtics fans, and so we probably got accused when we first took the team over of being more fans than owners. I remember, I'll never forget. I think in the second month we were playing Indiana in the playoffs, and it was our first playoffs, and Wick and I went down there wearing kind of those, remember, those high school like varsity jackets where they had they had Celtics on it. And then we saw in the paper the next day, the ubiquitous Bob Ryan said, those guys don't look like team owners. They look like fat frat boys. And so I corrected Bob because I saw him 2 days later at the home game, and I said, "Bob, I was never a frat boy."
That's good. Good one.
I'll cop to the fat, but not the frat.
I know that was good. Yeah. I should ask you what ownership in this town meant to you. I mean, there's so many things. We rank owners. This is the media. We do what we do. We rank owners. How would you rank the owners in this town? Between Kraft and Jacobs and Henry and you guys, and
I love all the owners. That's the great thing about Boston. I just talked to John Henry yesterday about Bob Kraft and Jonathan Kraft. Jonathan Kraft worked at Bain Capital, actually, worked at Bain and Company back in the day when I was there. So this town is unique in that the owners are all very close. We work on charities together, like the Jimmy Fund, the Shamrock Foundation. They helped us put up the Bill Russell statue when we did that. So I think it's a unique town that everybody works with everybody else, and we live and die with the performance of the Patriots and the Red Sox and the Celtics and the Bruins, and obviously certainly my 40 years here, we've had a good run with all those Patriots championships and the
oh my
Bruins
God,
doing well. Yeah, it's been amazing.
don't you find out the popularity of the owners stem from the success of their teams? I mean, it's pretty cut and dried. You're a winner,
Yeah,
you're a favorite owner. You're
I
a loser.
remember.
Yeah.
I remember I think year 2 or 3, Paul Pierce got hurt, and another starter got hurt. So we were playing with a lot of rookies. I think we lost 57 games because Paul Pierce got hurt, and there were signs, fire Doc, fire Danny.
Yeah.
We thought Doc had the team playing really well, a young team playing really well. And when Paul came back, and we'd add something to it. We ended up winning the championship, I think, the next year. We went from losing 57 to winning the championship. So we didn't listen to the fire Doc, fire Danny, and I was going to put a sign up, fire the owners, because ultimately it's our fault. It's not their fault, and they did a fabulous job. And we learned. Wick and I are both in venture capital, and you got to take the long. I always tell new owners when they come in, you need to take the long term view. If you want to come in and try to win immediately, and a lot of them come in and change the whole team up, and then they get an aging star that has 1 year left, maybe of good playing time, and that's a path to disaster, mediocrity. You give up your draft picks. So we've taken this long-term kind of venture capital thing, and the great thing is the fans in Boston were very sophisticated. So when we bought the team, I think the average attendance was something like 16,000, a little less than 16,000. So we had 3,000 empty seats. Wick and I wanted to bring the fans back. So back in the day, there used to be paper tickets. So we would all grab about 200 tickets and drive around town to gas stations and hotels and restaurants, and we'd give tickets to people who were
Really?
thrilled. Yeah, and it looked like the garden was starting to fill up, but those were all those free tickets. But that built momentum, and then the fans realized we were in it, to try to win it. And then they started coming back and supported us, and the revenues went up, and we spent all the money on getting better players, and finally bringing in Garnett and Ray Allen, and then got that championship. So the support and trust of the fans was really key to our success.
One thing I noticed when I watched, the outside shot, people going up the escalator, coming into the garden, and then when they have cutaways, is how young the crowd is now. And I guess we're all getting older, and that will never change. But I've never seen so many young people, even back in the day. It was kind of a mix, but there's a lot of young people.
Yeah, we're fortunate. Adam Silver and David Stern did a fabulous job at the league level. The game is exciting. It fits kind of today's world of instant excitement. When we bought the team, there was no X or YouTube or Facebook or any of that stuff. And so you've seen a major technological change that has been good for the game of basketball because it's so fast moving, and it has incredible, highlight clips of Peyton Pritchard hitting a shot from 3/4 court in the game, or an incredible, dunk by Tatum or Brown. And so when we bought the team, the fans were measured in hundreds of thousands. Now fans are global and measured in the hundreds of millions and sometimes billions for ubiquitous soccer teams like Manchester City, Manchester United. And basketball is getting to be the same way. It's a global sport, and global sports have really benefited by this technology streaming, where you can, when I was in Japan, China, I would see people on the train watching Celtics games on their phone on the way to work. So it's become, a global game, and basketball is really well suited for today's technology.
Okay, let me ask you these questions. You brought up Peyton Pritchard. I didn't want to bring it up, but I think that he traveled.
He's going to say this.
Did he travel? And this was okay. First of all, traveling isn't called in the NBA very much. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say he obviously didn't travel because there's no travel call.
Very, very good answer. But
How
there is
many
replay in
times
the
have
NBA.
you been at a practice where he's thrown in a half court shot? How many times have you seen him do that? Probably a lot, right?
Yeah, a lot. He can make it routinely. He's one of the best. I think probably 5 shooters in the NBA.
Wow.
But let's talk about the game that you've inherited or purchased, that you're a very integral part of, that you're a winner. Is it easier to win the first time, or is it more difficult to win the first time or to repeat? As if you
That's a tough call. I can go both ways on it. Um, it's very hard to win the first time because most often you don't have players. I don't think we had any players in the 2008 team that had won a championship before. And winning one just kind of seasons them and makes them know how hard it is. Drew Holiday had won one before, so, who's on our team, and I think Brown and Tatum, we knocked on the door several times. So I think we were playoff hardened, and the team we had this year, led by Jason and Jalen and Drew Holiday and these great players, they they decided they were going to win, and you saw them play incredible team ball, passing the ball. Tatum had huge numbers of assists, stepped back from the number of shots he was taking. Jalen Brown was hitting guys open in the corner constantly, and so they just decided they had been here, they'd been to the top and never reached the top, and they were going to reach the top. And you just had that feeling in the locker room.
When did were you part of that meeting last year with Brad when you traded away Marcus Smart, Robert Williams was gone, two other guys are gone, and then you bring in the three guys that came in. Did you just decide that we're not going to win with this same makeup again? We got to try something different.
Yeah, to the brain trust, Brad and uh, uh, Austin Ainge and Mike Zarin and the staff, they came in with kind of the thinking that we needed to shake it up a little bit and change something because we gotten so close. Number one. Number two, when players like Porzingis, we were very fortunate he was available. Washington decided to rebuild, and Porzingis wanted to come to the Celtics. So when he was available, I think we had to make that trade, and you can see he made a huge difference in winning this championship. We didn't really have you don't find many 7'3" guys that shoot from the outside and also can do post ups and also protect the rim. So part of it was yeah, we wanted to change. We didn't want to change for change's sake, but we could change for the better. So bringing in a person like Drew Holiday, bringing in Derek White, bringing in Porzingis, these are three all-star level players, and that was bound to help Jason and Jalen and make our team deeper. The development of Sam Hauser into an incredible shooter and mover off screens and a better defender. Peyton Pritchard, bringing Al back, that gave us really deep team. And I think to win a championship, you need a deep team in today's NBA. You can't go just with five guys. It's just too long a game. It's too tough, and you have injuries. So we had a very deep and skilled team that played together, and that was key to it.
Steve, I know that there's some things you can't talk about because of the announcement this week, which shocked a lot of fans. But maybe you can talk about the fans and what they can expect. They're pretty happy with the way things are right now. And
Yeah,
they
and look,
without,
the Grossbeck family is an incredible family, and I've been partners for 21 years, and so I think nothing's going to happen that's going to hurt the fans. Whatever happens is going to happen for the positive. The team won't be sold to someone who's going to strip it down. They recognize we all recognize when we first bought it, our first slide and our pitch deck was that this isn't investment, it's a community asset. It's owned by everybody, and we've got to treat it that way. And as it became so true. Red said a long time ago, the Celtics are not a basketball team; they're a way of life. And I saw that. I saw him say that, and I saw that written several places, and we have it in our facility. And I kind of knew what it meant, but after 21 years, I really know what it means. And we only win because of the fan support, and we try to give back to the community. As you know, when we came in, we developed a large charitable operation called the Boston Celtics Shamrock Foundation, We set that up, I think, the first day we were in, and we followed that with Boston Celtics United for Social Justice. So we're one of the league leaders in players' hours spent in charities and hospitals and helping people in need. We're committing $2.5 million a year for social justice and 6 programs on that. So in Boston, it's not. Red was right. It's not a basketball team. It's a way of life, and that's how people who invest in these teams have to treat that these days, in my opinion.
Well, you've gone from Red to Danny to Brad Stevens, which is a pretty direct line of the three of them. Red drafted Danny. Danny hired Stevens with your blessing, and here we are. The guy did a fabulous job of building a team under your stewardship. So you're not far removed from Red Auerbach.
No, and look, the first 5 years that we had the pleasure of working with Red directly, the day we announced the transaction, Wick and I flew down to Washington to bring Red back into the fold. The previous administration had not had Red as part of the team, so we wanted to bring him back and get his blessing. It was a really incredible meeting. I don't know if you've been down to Red's office in Washington D.C., but I think he's had it since like 1952.
I might remember the letter openers at the one he has up in here in Boston.
Oh yeah, but that was only half the letter openers. He had the rest of them down there in Washington. Yeah, so that's a great comment, because I was going to say I walked in and he's sitting behind a desk and has 100 letter openers on it. I guess that was a big gift in the 50s and 60s, and we had a plan. The Celtics at that time were the only team in the whole NBA. 29 teams had dancers or cheerleaders. We had no cheerleaders. We had an organ playing during the breaks. You could
I
hear people.
remember
Yeah.
Gaston brought in the cheerleaders. That's all right.
No. Gaston did not bring the cheerleaders. There was no cheerleaders.
Maybe he got rid of them. I don't know what it was. Somebody brought them in.
No, nobody brought them in. Red would not. So we had this business plan to make the game more fast moving and bring in dancers that we wanted to run by Red, and we wanted to run a couple other things by him, but the main thing was to kind of he was anti change. So we walked in his office, and by the way, we saw the letter openers. And then I think he, honestly, God still had a rotary phone on his desk, and it was kind of dusty, and he had a cigar, the whole 9 yards. And he sat there, and we sat down, and he looked at us, and he said, "Hey, before we start, I want to say 2 things. I need to tell you guys 2 things that you got to do." And we said, "Yeah, what is that, Red?" And he said, "When you draft players and get players, they got to be instigators and not retaliators." So I wrote it down on my notepad, instigators. I said, "Great, that's great. We agree with that." He said, "Secondly, never get cheerleaders. They're nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble." So we kind of sat back, and Wick and I looked at each other, and we dropped the cheerleading plan. And then there's kind of a follow-on to the story. We brought in athletic people, so people that you can see that go on trampolines. They're not cheerleaders, so that got some more excitement. Red was okay with that. Then 3 years later, Mohegan Sun came to us and said, "We'll give you a contract for $500,000 sponsor having dancers out there." So we looked at each other and said, we could use that money to get players and build the team. So we scheduled another meeting with Red, down same place, same rotary phone, same letter openers. Came back down there, and Red said, "What do you guys want to see me about?" And we said, "Well, we think we want to bring in cheerleaders now, dancers." And Red said, "Why in the world would you do that?" And we said, "Well, Mohegan Sun's going to give us $500,000, and we can use that to get players that are instigators and not retaliators." And I swear to God, this is a true story. So Red looks up, his cigar, he goes, "That's a no-brainer."
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey. All right. Now we didn't bring anything up about the potential sale of the team, and you hang up on us and you go black on us right there.
I don't know what happened.
Well, don't ask us, because if
let's blame Red.
Lynch and Lobel, Channel 4 and Channel 5 would never get on the air. What were we talking about? I can't remember. Red.
I just finished the Red Danny story.
Yeah, and now is it true that you've been in so many different places, Waltham, Brand, that you had a replica of Red's office in the facility at some point?
Yeah, in the first office we had we had Red in all of his letter openers and all sorts of stuff, and it was kind of like a shrine. He used it when he came up, but we used it as a kind of a conference room.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. Um, Let me ask you, you were talking about the relationship you have with the other teams, and body language is something everybody looks at. When you guys were at Fenway Park, all throwing out the first pitch that night and walking out there, it wasn't like a chore for anybody to be there. It was a real absolute thrill. That's what it looked like on everybody's faces. You guys included, along with the players.
Yeah, this was a from top to bottom, a very close knit team, and it's great. We've signed basically everybody to come back for next year. These guys really play together. They like each other. They spend time. This team is true, team and friendly. And, Luke Cornett's amazing. The guys love, Luke. He's always in the middle of things.
Yeah.
Jason, Jalen, Jalen has a great, you always see him on the bench yucking it up with Porzingis. They're like the odd couple. They have the same kind of sense of humor, I guess. So it's just been a joy. I mean, there's been no drama, with this team. Every year, probably in the 20 other years, we had some kind of drama, but these guys have been incredibly community oriented, solid citizens. Drew Holiday's a pro's pro. Danny would tell you he's Drew Holiday may be one of his all-time favorite players in the NBA. He was trying to get Drew Holiday for 10 years. When he was in New Orleans and other places, we were trying to get him to come to the Celtics, and finally it worked out.
Why did you pick a guy, the youngest coach in the NBA? Why did you guys pick this guy to take over that team? It seemed like from now, let's pretend we don't know what happened over the last 2 years. What possibly could have motivated you guys to say, Joe Mazzulla is our guy?
Well, Danny and Brad had watched Joe, in college and as a college coach, and hired him as an assistant. And so we had great knowledge of Joe, and Joe was always super prepared, super intense, super analytical about the game. And he's an incredible leader as well. We could see that as an assistant coach. So when the opportunity arose, rather than going outside, we like to go within if we have A players within, and we do have several of them. And so we felt it was an opportunity for Joe, and Joe would grow into the opportunity. And the players really liked Joe. He'd coached the players directly. And it turns out that was a good decision. We were lucky that was a good decision. Obviously, it's a controversial decision to hire such a young coach. We went through a coaching transition. It was funny. We went through a coaching transition at Duke. I'm involved with Duke at the same time. I had a couple of boys play at Duke, and I'm a Duke board member. And I was just involved with the transition from Coach K to John Shire.
That must not have been easy.
No. And people said, "Oh, that's crazy," because John Shire was only 36 to get the job, and he'd been a longtime assistant with Coach K. And then the Celtics, we had somebody even younger to run the Celtics, and both have worked out very well. Shire's a fantastic coach, and Joe Mazzulla is a fantastic coach beyond his years. He did an incredible job this season, and he's still growing. All coaches make mistakes. The media would say if Joe would make a mistake, oh, he's too young. What he made a mistake, but Budenholzer, who'd been coach for 20 years, made a mistake in the Milwaukee series. And they don't say that's because he was young. You can't be perfect as a coach, but Joe is pretty close to perfect and getting better every day. And he's just a hard worker, kind of like Danny and Brad. They eat, sleep, and drink basketball 24/7. And, we're very lucky to have him. We're thrilled to have him.
Do you keep in touch with Danny?
Oh, yeah. Danny was a friend before the Celtics, and he's still a friend. And I just talked to him. I've talked to him 2 times this week. We always talk after the draft a little bit. It's interesting because he thought maybe because I went to Duke that we would influence to pick the Duke player, the center from Duke, and we picked 30th that we didn't pick, and we picked Sharman for the shooting, and then he picked the Duke guy at 32.
Interesting. We Steve Pagliuca is our guest, and some people listen to this, they don't watch it. And many of you may be wondering why we aren't talking about the potential the inevitable sale of the Celtics, and Steve is bound by a non-disclosure agreement not to talk about it, and we've agreed not to ask him any questions about it. So if you're wondering, that's what had happened. But you did go on record publicly, Steve, saying that you'd like to be part of a new ownership group going forward. Are you at liberty to talk about that at all?
I'm, I think it's public that I'd love to be part and continue the story. I don't have estate planning issues, and I love the Celtics, so I'd be thrilled to be a part of something going forward.
Fair enough. Thank you. Appreciate it.
There have been so many interesting owners of this franchise, as you know, interesting characters. You mentioned Red ousted by Patino, of course. You were very kind in not mentioning Rick's name, but that was all part of our history. It was a big part of the Celtics history. But then there's John Y. Brown. People forget John Y. Brown. The franchise was traded to Buffalo. You know the whole story.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost crazy. But then there's Harry Mangurian, which many people think, I guess it's who did Red think was the best owner? And that would be the answer to who was the best owner. Whoever Red thought was the best owner. And I think Gaston was up there, Irv Levin was up there, and Harry Mangurian were up there. And I think you guys seem to be in the right place at the right time, and at least malleable, and maybe this comes from your investor background, but the game has changed so much. You have 5 guys standing outside a 3-point line ready to shoot 3-pointers. As you know, the game has changed so much. The fans have, amazing to me that the fans have so much morphed with the change as well. What do you, as an owner, how do you feel about it? Because you were here back when it was Bird, Parrish, and McHale.
Yeah, look, I've loved all those eras, and as life teaches you, you got to change or die. And the stat guys came in, and the light bulb went off that 3-shot is worth more than 2-shot, and today's players were hitting them at a large clip. It's funny. I think when the 3 first came in, Danny led the league in I think taking 3-point shots, and I think he took 100 or something. And then right now Steph Curry takes 105, 7 games, a whole season plus playoffs. Danny was took 100, 150 shots. So because of the skill of the players and because of the new analytics, the new basic analytics would say it makes more sense to take an open 3 or take a layup, because the statistical point value, if you could shoot 40% from the 3, is 1.2 points per shot. The statistical value of a layup, which you make at a 50% clip, is 1. Mid-range shots, people make 42% of mid-range shots, so it's only 0.8. So you see the NBA has gone largely away from any player is discouraged to take a mid-range shot. So you really have a league where you want to drive and kick and take a 3 or get a dunk or a layup. But
Yeah.
it all goes in cycles, because now people are more sophisticated defending the 3 line. So now there are players developing a mid-range shot, and they're getting better at that as well. So I'm sure this will bounce back into a little different form over the next 10 years. Now what people are focusing on is how many shots you can get up a game. So moving the ball up quickly, getting more shots. Offensive rebounds have become really important, because that gets you more possessions. So as we introduce AI, and I think the Celtics were on model 20.0 of our kind of regression model on what makes a winning team. You find out more nuggets, and then the game changes. To follow what the stats say.
Fabulous. I mean, I even wonder, because they're so big, so fast, so physical, and there's so many players that can do things we never thought possible. Would they even consider potential rule changes? I don't know what they've done, if any, in soccer. We haven't gotten to football, European football, which we will. We're going to talk about Italian football. But I'm asking you about, before we get to Atalanta.
Atalanta.
Before we get to Atalanta, let's talk about, have there been any discussions about potential rule changes in the league? Was it make baskets smaller, make the floors wider, longer to accommodate?
We have a competition committee that looks at that every year that Adam Silver puts in, and there have been some changes. You notice this year we're back to, I would say, almost like the '80s, letting people play defense. I think the league saw that the players are so good right now, and there were rules of you touch a guy, it's a foul. Um, they're really calling the game, letting it be more physical, because when they changed the rules so there couldn't be impedance and you could only put one hand on an offensive player, it got such that it was becoming, the Globetrotters. It was so easy to score. So I think appropriately they went back to the officiating, of the '80s, and are letting the players play more. And I think that has less game stoppage. It makes the game more exciting. It rewards, defensive players more. And so every year, the league looks at it and says, what's best for the game, what's best for the fans. I don't think you'll see a 4-point shot or, radical change, but every year they kind of tweak around the edges to make sure we have a free flowing, an exciting game.
Before we go to Atalanta, okay, before we ask you, we do have a commercial we have to put in here every once in a while. It's not up on the scoreboard or whatever, but it's there. And it's about camping and travel, so we can travel to Italy, although it may be difficult on a camper at this particular time. But campers, are you thinking about a new RV? Our friends at Cold Springs RV are ready for you. So go see the latest in travel trailers, fifth wheelers, motorhomes, pop-ups, and much more. They have the best selection and even an indoor heated showroom for pop-ups. Visit Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire, where it's west of Goffstown and north of Tingsboro, or check them out online at coldspringsrv.com. And here's Steve. Mike has, this is our usual format. After we do our Cold Springs reminder, Mike has a question for you regarding travel.
After these two championships, one in Europe and one here, I really feel like getting in an RV and just driving across the country and not answering phone calls. This has been, I think, two of the busiest months of my entire life. My life's pretty busy, but the success of Atalanta combined with the Celtics, I was back and forth to Europe, I think 9 or 10 times in 9 weeks, because
Wow.
Atalanta kept upsetting people and winning. And so I went to every playoff game they had in the Europa Cup, and then I went to every Celtics game. So I was flying to Rome, then back to Indianapolis, and then back to Liverpool, and back to Indianapolis, and then back to Marseille, and then to Cleveland, and it was crazy.
Wow. It does sound crazy. Might make it a little crazy.
So that actually falls right into our question right here. We all know that John Madden didn't like to fly, so they had a Madden Cruiser. Well, Cold Springs, one of these days, is going to build a Lobel Lynch Cruiser that can drive cross country, and we're going to give use of it to all our guests. And you'll have it when it's finally, and you get to drive from here to the West Coast. We'll fly you back, and you don't have to drive. You can ride shotgun or you can drive, but you have to pick one person, past, present, alive, deceased. Can be sports, can be politics, can be anything, that's going to ride with you cross country, that won't give you a headache, that you might find fascinating, that you would like to talk to all the way across the country. Who would that be?
Wow, I mean, there's a lot of, that's a tough one. I have to think about that one. I'd love to bring Red back and get 5 years. I probably still only got 40% of Red stories. He has another 60% left before he passed away. He used to talk about barnstorming and going over with the U.S. Army and playing basketball in Europe. Red had a million. Had a million. His fights with David Stern are legendary. He had a million stories. So from a Celtics perspective, it would be great to be on that trip with Red, and he'd probably have stories all the way there and all the way back.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so a follow-up question is, who would you like to fly to Italy with to watch your soccer team play? And just the two of you talking the whole time? Who would that be?
Well, it's more my whole family, my wife and my family, which they all came over for the championship and the parade there. So it was an incredible experience. It was one of the most incredible duck boat experiences I've ever had. And then 2 weeks before that, the version of the duck boat in Italy, in Bergamo at Atalanta, it's basically right near Milan. They have a double deck bus, and there was such, soccer is such a passion in Europe. They live and die by every single goal. And for Atalanta, the first time in 100 years to win this championship, they were just, it was a madhouse. And so we started that double deck bus tour at the top of the old city. The old city in Bergamo was built by to prevent built by the Venetians to prevent the Milanese from coming and taking over Venice. So it's at the top of a big hill. The buildings are like 1,000 years old, and the streets are cobblestone. And so we're coming down a mountain in a double deck bus with like 2 inches on each side, and like hundreds of thousands of people in front of the bus and the sides of the bus, and then police people with ropes to keep the people off the bus. But because there were so many people, we started at about 8 o'clock at night coming down into the city, and it's about, I think, 4 mile trip. It took 5 hours to get to the bottom of the city with all those people out there. And by the time we got there, it was dark, and then they lit off flares and smoke, and everything was red, and you couldn't see. And there's 100,000 people surrounding the bus. It was really like a scene out of Apocalypse Now, and they sing songs there. They're singing songs and saying, Atalanta, Atalanta, the whole town. And so I finally got off that bus at about 1 a.m. after getting on at 8 p.m. So that was about 5 times longer than the duck boat tour. And I think every single citizen of Atalanta and Milan got to see that team on top of that bus. It was incredible.
So that was the 2004 version of the Red Sox in Atalanta.
Yes, it really was. It was, and I'm shocked nobody got hurt. I mean, we had players lighting off flares on the bus like 3 feet from me, and a real flare, flame shoots out of it, and I could see one of my co-owner partners. There'd be cinders coming down on his hair. I thought he was going to be lit on fire. It was just. It was
But
just. I'll send you some clips. I'll send you a clip of it. It's incredible. It's just a sea of smoke and red and flares and people screaming and drum beating and music. It was unbelievable.
the reason I go back, Steve, this franchise had a pretty checkered past throughout its whole. I mean, 100 years and plus 120 years maybe now. It's a long time, and it had its ups and downs. Success was not one of its hallmarks.
Well, no, they became successful. I purchased the team and partnered with the Italian management. They became successful about 10 years ago. This management team and family they ran at the Percassis are unbelievable, and I wouldn't have done it, without partnering with them. And so we've helped bring in capital and analytics and things like that. But they've done a fabulous job. They have it's kind of a parallel universe. They have their Danny Ainge, which is Luca Percassi. His father, Antonio Percassi, was a famous soccer player, played for Atalanta. Luca Percassi played in the Chelsea system. So they know soccer inside out. And with a payroll of like a third of most of the teams we played, we won the Europa Cup because they have an incredible academy of 420 boys that come from the greater Milan area. Anyone who's born in Bergamo, when they're born, every single person born in Bergamo gets a onesie that is an Atalanta uniform. So when you're born in Bergamo, 100% get an Atalanta uniform. So these boys come and join the academy, and we have an academy that goes from 6 years old to 17 years old, and they're school and they play soccer every day, and it's been the most successful academy in Europe. So 5 of the 20 under 23 players on the national team in Italy, 5 of those players come from Atalanta, versus the other 60 teams that play in Italy. So they really punch above their weight in developing young players, and that's how we can beat these teams. I thought we were going to lose 10-0 to Liverpool. We came into Liverpool in the Europa Cup in the quarterfinal, and Liverpool had not lost in a year and a half. It's John Henry's team, fantastic team. Billy Hogan, great CEO, famous players, ranked 5th in the world, I think. And I brought a nose and glasses because I thought it was going to be a beating, and we ended up winning 3-0. Tom Werner was
Wow.
there. They were very gracious. They were very gracious to us. And I mean, I couldn't breathe. I could not breathe because it was 1-0, then it was 2-0. We were ahead, then 3-0. And I said, "Oh my God, we might win this game." And we actually won the game 3-0. And then we moved on to Marseille, and Marseille had the best home record of any European team at home. We went down to Marseille. Marseille, by the way, I don't know if you've been there. It's a rough place. I think I don't want to say anything bad about Marseille, but you read the books on it, Corsica, the docks there. Very rough place, tough to play in. And we ended up tying them there, and we beat them at our home base, which led us to a finals in Dublin. And so then I flew to Dublin, and in Dublin we played a team called Bayer Leverkusen. Well, they are only one of 3 teams in European football history to come into the championship game undefeated, like that Patriots team that went to the Super Bowl. They had never lost 51 games. They beat in the Bundesliga. They won all their games, and they tied a couple. They tied a few in the Europa, but they had come in with 0 losses. So the papers were saying we're going to lose, 3-0, 5-0. I think we were 10-1 underdogs, 20-1 underdogs, and we won that game 3-0. And then they brought a huge trophy out of the field. That's a one and done. It's like kind of like the Super Bowl. I think 300 million people watched that game, and it was fantastic to see our players, celebrate with an upset of that magnitude. So it's been a great June for me. Great June.
Yeah, I was going
Okay,
to
so
say.
you're like the father of these 2 twins, Atalanta and the Celtics. Which is your favorite twin?
As any father would say, you love them both, there's a lot of similarities, and we have a lot of overlap. Wick is an investor, and knows all the club, and Mike Zarin comes and helps with the stats, and our docs talk to their docs. So there's a parallel universe there. Our docs are just like the docs they have there. We have our own, Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens there, and it's just in an Italian context. And I'm emotional about it because my grandfather came on a boat from Italy in I think 1921 to the United States, Ellis Island. My grandmother came on the same boat, and they're from a very small town in Italy, and they just spoke Italian. And my grandfather, because of discrimination those days, he was a smart guy, but he could only get a job as working in a shoe factory, so he was a shoemaker. He made about $8 a week, and made enough to help put my father through college. My father was the first of that line to go to college, and then my father, worked hard and gave us an education. So I'm emotional. I go back to Italy. When I first went to look at the team, I'll never forget this day. I got off the plane in Bergamo, and I saw just a sea of people, and they all looked like me. So I said, "This is a great place." I said, I gotta do this deal. Everyone looks like me here, and they talk with their hands.
How many are there any current members of the Celtics team, soccer fans, that are aware of know your team and what you've accomplished?
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, the crazy thing, we won the Europa Cup, and then one of our stars, Ademola Lookman, who all of our players know, he played for the Nigerian national team after we won the Europa Cup, and they finished up, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and the day they finished, he jumped on a plane in Lagos, Nigeria, and he flew to Dallas to watch the 3rd Celtics game in Dallas. So he got to meet Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla is an investor in Atalanta, as well as Sully and Gotham and Wick and a bunch of the Celtics guys, Brad Stevens as well. And Joe Mazzulla is a huge soccer guy, and incredible. He was talking to Ademola Lookman, and Lookman follows our team and loves our players. And they were talking, deep soccer strategy, because Joe knows soccer really well. And Joe compared kind of the 9-man weave in soccer with the plays he's running and what he learns about passing and the sidelines. And so I have some great pictures of Joe talking to Ademola Lookman after that Dallas win.
Wow.
Geez, you've had the Prince and future King of England here. How was that? What was that like?
That was incredible. I didn't realize that the Prince is like 6'4", 6'5", kind of Danny Ainge size. And he actually played basketball as a kid in London. And they were only supposed to come for a quarter or half the game, and they were so excited they stayed the entire game.
They did. I watched. I saw them. Yes.
Yeah, and I was sitting next to them. My wife and I were sitting next to them, and I've never seen it like we've been in playoffs and championships, all the rest. I must have gotten 10,000 text messages from Japan, from people I
You
know in
know,
Japan, from people in Australia. They're like, "Oh my God, you're sitting next to the the prince and the princess," and so that had to be one of the highest. It was just a regular season game at the Celtics. It had to be one of the highest watched games in our history globally, because my texts were just blowing up, sitting next to the prince, and they were great. They came early, and Boston Celtics Shamrock Foundation has a program where we have bought a ambulance and painted it green, and it goes in the inner city and does prenatal care. They don't have a lot of prenatal care there, so we've supplemented that by doctors in a van going to the mothers in the city for post and prenatal care, with giving them treatment and giving them advice. And they came to look at that. They thought that was a really great humanitarian effort. So they came and met the people and met the doctors and the nurses that work on there. So it was quite a magical night. But I don't think I've ever gotten more text than even in the championship games than I've gotten from their visit.
What was security
amazing.
like that? What was the security like that night?
Oh my God. It was security was great, but I love the Prince. He just ignored the security. So he was high-fiving fans, and they were like security guys diving in front of me so he wouldn't high-five fans, but he just brushed them away and he was high-fiving fans, and he got into it. He didn't give a damn about the security. And they were just running around. There are these like kind of heavy set, strong guys, and they're trying to like push fans out of the way, and he's going into the crowd and he's jumping up and down. It was amazing.
Are you guys planning to go to the White House?
I hopefully so. We haven't gotten the word on that yet, but that'll be an exciting visit down there.
My next quick question, and it's political. So
Here we go. Here we go.
you haven't. I know that you're a Democrat leaning, and I know that you ran for the Ted Kennedy seat, and I know that Biden's in some difficulty. But I want to ask you what. This is way off the beaten path, but you can do it. There's no doubt about it. But your opinion matters to me, so I'll ask it because I'm the one here. And what do you think? What do you think Biden should do?
I'm really not in a position to say that. When people say we have lots of data. We have lots of internal data and things that the public doesn't have. So I think they've got to make that decision. They have all the data. Obviously it wasn't a great performance at the debate, but I guess Biden's still ahead in the polls. And so the inner circle, actually a fantastic person who worked with me at Bain and Company 25 years ago, Jeff Zients, is the chief of staff for Biden now, and he's a very close friend. And he's one of the smartest guys I know. He was a CEO of a couple of great companies. So they're going to have to decide that. And I don't have the data. I'm on the sidelines. And why would I give advice? I mean, I think when I ran for Senate, I got about 7 votes, and I had 5 family members, and I assumed that each of you were the 6th and the 7th. So to put me solidly into last.
Well, that wasn't why I asked you. I just felt that you might have an opinion, but I think that's probably the best answer you could possibly give.
Yeah, it's so funny. I run into people now, and with the Celtic success, and they say, "Hey, I was with you. I voted for you. I voted for you." And I said, and I go back to my wife and say, that couldn't possibly be, since I had like 7 votes. About 50,000 people have told me they voted for me. So I guess it's good at secret ballot.
Yeah, 5 family members and Lynch and Lobel. There's your 7 right
That's
there.
it. It kind of stopped right there.
I hope you didn't mind me asking you that question. I knew
No
that
problem.
you're very involved in the Democratic Party, and I thought you might.
No, look, I think our country, it's been a very tough time in our country. I think it started, frankly, it was starting to get that way right when I was running. They had the Tea Party, and the whole world has become very divisive and parochial. Democracy, in some senses, is breaking down and becoming parochial. So I'm hoping it's a cycle, and maybe after this election we'll get out of it, because I don't really want to hear a debate where the whole debate is one person saying the other person is stupid, and the other person saying the other person's a liar. That doesn't get us anywhere as a country. We need people that are going to kind of come together and try to make joint decisions what's best for the country, and we don't have that right now. We have very extreme partisan things on each side. I mean, the only like lucid part of the debate was talking about golf handicaps, and
I
that's probably
noticed
not
that, you
great.
know what, I can't believe you brought that up because I've talked about that with more than one person. I said the only time they were real, the only time they got into themselves was talking about their handicaps and how far they could hit the ball.
Yeah, somebody asked me how was the debate. I said it was great for the game of golf.
Hey, let me one more quick commercial. Hey, if you're thinking about a new vehicle, go where Lobel and Lynch go. Go see our friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We've been customers for years because we know George Gray will treat you right. They're a family-owned and operated dealership that we trust and you can trust as well. Go see the big wheel, we call him, the great George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. George is a huge Celtic fan. He's going to love this podcast, Steve, as I know a lot of people will. Who was the number one prankster on the team? Who would you say of all the guys in uniform? Who was the prankster?
Yeah, I think Luke Cornett, would probably get that award. I swear to God, the guy's like David Letterman. He is hilarious. The teammates love him. Right after we won the championship, Al Horford called me and said, "Steve, do anything you can. Make sure." I thought he was going to, thank me or whatever. He said, "Do anything you can. Make sure Luke Cornett's coming back." They love him, and he keeps it light in the locker room, and he's just an incredible individual. Everyone loves that guy. But they had a lot of fun. The team had a lot of fun. Jalen has a great sense of humor. Jason has a great sense of humor. And this was just a very together team. So I'm already looking forward to summer league and next season.
Yeah, they looked like they got along. They looked like it was such just the chemistry was so different this year compared to the last half dozen years.
Yeah, and the Drew Holiday I think was voted as the player of the year, teammate of the year 2 or 3 times, and you could see that when he came to the Celtics, that was the same guy that was voted as the best teammate. He's an incredible teammate as well. So everybody played as a team. They wanted a championship. And I remember when with that shot you talked about, the Peyton hit. I was standing right next to Jaylen Brown, and he was like, it was like he hit the shot.
Yeah.
He was. They were so excited that was incredible. I think that kind of snuffed it all out for Dallas. Making that shot was like, it's funny.
That was game over right there. Game over.
I turned to Wick. I sat next to Wick, and I turned to Wick before that shot, and I said, everybody knows that they're going to try to throw this to Peyton Pritchard. I think they should just fake it to him and give it to Tatum. And so of course I'm not the coach. So the Mazzulla ran the play to put it to Peyton. Somehow they didn't cover Peyton, and he hit a half court shot, and I think that was over when he did that.
Agreed.
Awesome. Well, Steve, this has been a fantastic conversation, and with your incredibly busy schedule, we can't thank you enough. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been great. I'm now gearing up for the reward Atalanta gets by winning the Europa Cup is the winner of the Europa Cup plays the winner of the Champions League as the first game of the season on August 14th in a giant stadium in Warsaw, Poland. So I'll be going with the family to Warsaw, Poland, and they play the Champions League champion, which is the number 1 team in the world. I don't know if you know, it's Real Madrid. And to make matters worse, Real Madrid just bought a player called Mbappe for 120 million euros.
Great player.
Yeah, maybe the best player in the world. And we're going to have to cover Mbappe on August 14th. So I hope the magic is still there. Our little team is going to play the number 1 ranked team in the world in Poland, probably being watched by, a billion people because everyone wants to see it's Mbappe's first start for Real Madrid.
Wow. I would tune in. It's like Messi. You go to see him play, or Pele. He's one of the quality players like that.
No, that game will get big ratings in the U.S. So I'll wave to you guys from the owner's box there.
We'll look for you. Thank you, Steve. You really did a great job.
Steve, thank you so much. You're the best.
Great to be here. You guys,
on all your success, and have a great relax. Go someplace, shut the phone off, and
you guys are legends. So I'm just pinching myself.
For all the wrong reasons.
After listening to you guys for 40 or 50 years, now that I'm actually talking to you, so it's been a pleasure. And have a great 4th.
We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Steve Pagliuca. All right, buddy. Make sure you all follow us on unanchoredboston.com.